So before Unstoppable, I'm probably best known for writing the Jamie Johnson books. I think the Jamie Johnson readers will like Unstoppable because there's enough of the football in there, with Kane trying to be a footballer, so you've got that link through, but it's a bit more intense, it's a bit more edgy, a bit more thrilling. And so I think it's a good next step for Jamie Johnson readers to go on and read Unstoppable and take their reading journey to that next level. Unstoppable is about a family, and everyone in that family is going through a journey. The dad, Daryl, has just lost his job and he's struggling to communicate and understand the difficulties that he's experiencing. The mum is working all hours and she's really struggling to be a mum and earn the money that they need to survive. And then you've got the twins, Roxy and Kane. And Kane feels the world's against him and no one's supporting him in his bid to be a professional footballer. Meanwhile, Roxy feels as though she has to be perfect and cannot make any mistakes as she strives to be the best young tennis player in the country. I always think about my readers when I'm writing, but I have to start with the story that I want to tell. Because I think if you're writing for your readers only, you will lose sight of what it is you want to say. So I always start with what is the story I need to tell, and then I try to make sure that that story is told in the best possible way to make it accessible, enjoyable, and compelling for my readers. Language for me came into my imagination when I was growing up, probably 10, 11, 12, and I'd be listening to football on the radio. And the pictures that the commentators would paint would just light up my mind. And ever since then, I've been in love with language and describing really exciting moments in the best way possible to get it into someone else's mind. The process of my writing begins with a feeling. Something will create a buzz in me and I will think I need to write about that. And then I will read anything I can on the subject, talk to anyone I can on the subject, so that my head is completely full with only that idea, only that story. I will always know the end of the story and then work towards it in my notes. I have loads of notes, and then one day I'll just say to myself, no matter how difficult it is, I need to start. And anything that is in my head at that point, I will write out. It may not even be in the chronological order of the story, but I will get it all out and then I'll reassemble it and I'll look at what I've got and then I'll start to mold it into something that hopefully one day will become the book that you'll read. I write about things that give me a feeling, and those will be subjects that affect people in day-to-day lives, that make their lives challenging, more difficult, obstacles that they're trying to overcome. If I'm watching a TV program or reading or writing a book, if everything's perfect, those stories don't really get me. It's the stories where people are overcoming very difficult obstacles, trying to achieve their dreams. Those are the ones that we get behind, and those are the ones that me as a writer I'm very interested to explore further. In terms of what people might take from Unstoppable, obviously it's up to the reader. Every person takes something different from any story, in the same way that you might look at a piece of art and see something different to someone else. But there was a boy who read the book, and at the end of it he said, it shows you that everything is not perfect the whole time, but that's okay. And things can get better. And I really like that approach to the book. In terms of Roxy and Kane's background, that was quite simply how the characters appeared to me in my mind. As an author, you then got a decision to make. Is that the story that you should write, that you could write? In the end, I thought I'm going to stay faithful to the vision that I have and let these characters speak for themselves. In terms of research for Unstoppable, for the last 12 years, I've visited about 2,000 schools all around the country. When I visit schools, we end up talking about so many different things because that's the point of a visit, I believe, is that I share my experiences, my background, and I really like it when pupils and students do the same. So we might end up talking about how people feel about their parents getting divorced. We might end up talking about difficulties that people are having in terms of settling into a new area, or we might even end up talking about safety and peer pressure. And it's through those kind of conversations that the research for Unstoppable began. And then of course I will also talk to teachers and police people as well, because you have to get this absolutely as accurate as you can. At school, I actually struggled with reading. I felt as though it was something people were trying to make me do, and so I didn't have the enthusiasm that I do now. A book that changed that, one of them, was a book called Fever Pitch by an author called Nick Hornby, and you've guessed it, had loads of football in it. It's all about football. And I was like, what, you can read a book and it can be about football? And that helped me to understand that actually you can read or write about whatever you want. And of course, Jamie Johnson is a kind of descendant of that, and then Unstoppable takes it to the next level too. One of the characters that I really like in Unstoppable is the character of Mama, which is the grandmother of Kane and Roxy. And she kind of knows that Roxy's all right, and she's very naughty because you should treat everyone equally, but she gravitates a bit more to Kane because he's going off the rails. I think there's something very special about the grandparent-grandchild relationship. And particularly for someone like Kane, who is very stubborn and he won't take advice, certainly not orders from his dad or his mum, the grandmother can get through to him. And I think sometimes that relationship is the most important one in someone's life. I had a very close relationship with my grandparents. I had a grandfather who never complained about anything in his life. Even when he was very old, he was always upbeat, and that showed me a very valuable lesson about having a positive disposition. I also had a very, very straight-talking grandmother who was an incredible woman, and I think probably a bit of that has gone into the writing of Unstoppable too. So before becoming an author, I worked with the FA, and I was the in-house journalist and editor, and I got to go to 2 World Cups with the England team. I got to travel with the players for about 7 years. What that gave me was a confidence in believing that I understood how top-class sport worked. And so if I'm writing about sport in Unstoppable, for example, I feel as though I have seen things that perhaps other people haven't seen, and that gives me a real confidence. And I've got quite a lot of messages and information I want to get across. So definitely that experience is a big part of who I am as an author today. Probably the best thing about the way people have read Unstoppable is the fact that they say it's unstoppable for them. Once they start reading it, they cannot stop. And that's what you love to hear as an author. I've had quite a few messages from people saying they got it on one day and finished it literally the next day. It's exactly what you want as an author. When I'm writing it, I want to be there every day, finding out what's going to happen next to these characters. And I'm hoping that the readers are going to have that same feeling, that they're compelled to go back and see what Kane's going to do next, what Roxy's going to do next, and how it's all going to end up. People have said, after Jamie Johnson, is Unstoppable going to be made into a TV show or a film? I can only say I would love it, and actually when I'm writing, I tend to see the story as a film in my head. So perhaps that's why the books translate well to the screen. Why did I choose to write about twins? I think we're all fascinated by twins, actually, that connection that they have. And in this case, I wanted to explore the idea that the person that should be the person closest to you and has been since before you were even born, can then at another stage in your life be your rival, and be the person you feel is blocking you from getting to where you need to get to. Roxy is someone who feels like everything has to be perfect, and that can be quite a difficult way to live, actually. So she's always under pressure from other people around her, but mostly from herself. Meanwhile, Kane is someone who is actually, although on the outside, he's quite a rough and a bit of a rebel. On the inside, he's very, very sensitive. So when he feels like people are not backing him and supporting him, he can be a bit rebellious and go off the rails. And that's kind of where we begin the story, with Roxy wanting everything to be perfect as she pursues her tennis dream, and Kane starting to become a bit of trouble as he feels like his football dream is starting to dissolve. In terms of a sequel for Unstoppable, at the moment, no plans for it. I think the book and the story ends as it should do in its way, and I think we conclude their stories. Having said that, if it ever comes to TV or film, I think there is lots more room to explore their stories. So I'll keep you posted.